हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल द सोलफुल डायरी। आज के वीडियो में हम बात करेंगे रॉबर्ट फ्रॉस्ट और उनकी पोम टू ट्रैम्प्स इन मैड टाइम के बारे में। पोम को डिस्कस करने से पहले डिस्कस कर लेते हैं पोएट्स के बारे में। चलिए रॉबर्ट फ्रॉस्ट के बारे में डिस्कस करते हैं। रॉबर्ट ली फ्रॉस्ट remains one of America's most celebrated poets. He stayed most of his life in New England, where he attended both Dartmouth College and Harvard. Though he did not manage to get a formal graduate degree, he married young and settled on a farm, trying to earn his living both from poultry farming and writing poetry, without much success in either. Fame came late to him when he decided to go to England in 1913 to try his luck in the publishing circles there. In England, he published two collections, both of which brought him instant recognition. When he returned to the United States in 1915, he was already famous. After this, he never looked back, winning the Pulitzer Prize thrice, receiving honorary degrees from as many as 40 colleges in both America and England, and being invited to lecture in some of the top colleges of America. His poems used the New England landscape and people extensively, sketching them in minute details, their mannerisms, accents, attitudes, and their topography. Frost often uses the technique of contraries in his poems. An idea, an attitude, or a personality is often contrasted with an opposing one. Very often, his poems are centered around the day to day activities of rural New England, through which he reaches out into the psychology of individuals and the complexities of a situation. The wealth and the warmth of immediate details and the ability to make an ordinary activity extend into a philosophical thought are typical features of Frost's story poetry. पोम को इन डेप्थ डिस्कस करने से पहले जान लेते हैं उसके कुछ की फीचर्स। टू ट्रैम्प्स इन मैड टाइम बाय रॉबर्ट फ्रॉस्ट इज अ पोम अबाउट वर्क, वेल्थ, and the purpose of life. It is defined by an interaction between the speaker and two wanderers. This poem describes how on a day in April the poet speaker was chopping wood in his dooryard. Two strangers, tramps, arrived there and caught him engaged in that work. They came from the muddy road. One of them accosted the speaker and asked him to hit hard. Two tramps in mad time goes on to say that he knew why the stranger stayed behind to talk to him and let his companion go away. The poet understood well what was in the mind of the man who had stayed behind with him. This man actually wanted to talk about the poet's job and to do it himself for pay or for earning money. The expression caught me splitting the wood implies that the speaker might be regarded as doing the work which ought to have been assigned to and done by the jobless tramps who had happened to come there. आप पोम को स्टैंजा वाइज डिस्कस करते हैं। स्टैंजा 1 and 2 Out of the mud, two strangers came and caught me splitting wood in the yard, and one of them put me off my aim by hailing cheerily, hit them hard. I knew pretty well why he had dropped behind and let the other go on away. I knew pretty well what he had in mind. He wanted to take my job for pay. Good blocks of oak it was I split, as large around as the chopping block, and every piece I squarely hit fell splinterless as a cloven rock. The blows that a life of self control spares to strike for the common good. That day, giving a loose my soul, I spent on the unimportant wood. This section of the poem describes the enjoyment derived by the speaker. He had the satisfaction of doing his job well and also finding relaxation from the tensions of life through this hard work. The speaker was chopping good pieces of a large oak tree. These pieces were quite large, like the tree he was chopping. Every piece that he hit with all his strength fell down like a broken or uprooted rock without any small pieces falling out of it. That means every piece was quite big like a rock. The poet possessed the strength which comes from the leading of a life of self control. The strength ought to have been used for striking blows for the common good or the general well being of people, thus giving satisfaction to his soul. But here it was being used for striking these strong blows on an unimportant object like wood and an unimportant task of wood chopping. The speaker could have made better use of his time and energy than wasting it on this insignificant task. However, letting loose his soul, he wasted it on tasks which could be done much better and more skillfully by a common woodcutter. Stanza 3. The sun was warm, but the wind was still. You know how it is with an April day. When the sun is out and the wind is still, you are 1 month on in the middle of May. But if you so much as dare to speak, a cloud comes over the sunlit arc, a wind comes off a frozen peak, and you are 2 months back in the middle of March. This section contains a beautiful description of natural phenomena around the poet at the time of his engagement in the task of wood chopping. It was a day in the month of April. The sun was warm and a chill was there in the wind. Such a sunny day in April reminds one of the weather in the month of May, and one might find himself 1 month or in the middle of May. However, even before one could say anything or utter a word, a change of weather may occur. The sunlit or clear blue sky may be overcast with a cloud. A chilly wind begins to blow from snow covered peaks, and one finds as if one were 2 months back in the middle of March, and one finds as if one were 2 months back in the middle of March. Or the weather changes into a chilly one like that found in the middle of the month of March. Stanza 4. A bluebird comes tenderly up to alight, and turns to the wind to unruffle a plume. His song, so pitched as not to excite a single flower as yet to bloom. It is snowing a flake, and he half knew winter was only playing possum, except in color he's in blue, but he wouldn't advise a thing to blossom. The description of the spring season is continued in the stanza because of the chilly wind. The bluebird who comes to alight keeps its feathers composed and unruffled in the wind, realizing that it is not yet spring. It sings a song in such a tone as not to inspire or excite a single flower as yet to bloom. That means the blossoming time has, in the view of the word, not yet arrived. Snowflakes are still falling in showers, and the bluebird realizes that the cold season is still continuing, and it pretends to be winter, whereas it ought to be spring and not so cold by now. The bluebird is not blue except in its outward color or appearance. It does not inspire anything to blossom in the season because it does not believe it to be springtime when flowers and plants could blossom. The discrepancy between appearance and reality is implied here. The poor jobless tramps that are in need of money are in a miserable state of winter, whereas the speaker wrongly believes himself to be happy in a warm season of spring, which has a deceptive, joyous appearance, but is actually chilly and uncomfortable. Stanza 5. The water for which we may have to look in summertime with a witching band. In every wheel ruts now a brook, in every print of a hoof a pond. Be glad of water, but don't forget the lurking frost in the earth beneath that will steal forth after the sun is set and show on the water its crystal teeth. In the summertime, there may be a scarcity of water, and we may have to search for it with the help of a witching wand, stick used for discovering water. But now, in the spring season, we may find rivulets in the ruts of furrows made on the road by wheels of carriages, or in the prints of the hoofs of animals. We may feel happy about the presence of water now. But we should advise the poet not to forget the dangerous frost lurking beneath the ground, which may appear stealthily after the sunset and show on the water its crystal teeth, or prove to be a menace to the apparently calm life of mankind on the earth. That is to say things may not be what they appear to be, and man should be cautious of the discrepancy between appearance and reality, as in the case of the actual presence of winter, that what appears to be a season of spring. The time when most I loved my task. The two must make me love it more by coming with what they came to ask. You would think I never had felt before. You would think I never had felt before. The weight of an axe head poised aloft, the grip of earth on outspread feet, the life of muscles rocking soft and smooth and moist in vernal heat. In this stanza, the speaker defends his act of wood chopping. The tramps seem to criticize him for doing this work for pleasure, whereas they might do it for need or money. The speaker says that they make him, because of their attitude of selfishness, love this task all the more. He remarks that he has never enjoyed the doing of this physical work involving holding aloft the axe head, planting his feet firmly on the earth, and the soft and smooth movement of the muscles in the heat of the spring season. As he is enjoying it now, he does not feel discouraged by the critical attitude of the tramps toward his doing his work. Stanza 7. Out of the wood, two hulking tramps from sleeping gods knows where last night, but not long since in the lumber camps they thought all chopping was theirs of right. Men of the woods and lumberjacks, they judged me by their appropriate tool, except as a fellow handled an axe. They had no way of knowing a fool. Stanza picks up the thread of the story after a gap of three previous stanzas in which the poet represents the vagaries of the climate in New England region. Two stout tramps are referred to as coming towards the speaker. It is not known where they might have slept last night, but it is certain that they have been in lumber camps. They are professional woodcutters, the lumberjacks who fell trees and help in transporting them to the mill. They think that they had the sole right over the wood chopping work, and any other kind of man doing this work could be regarded as unjust and foolish. The only way they could judge a man to be a fool was to see how he handled the axe. The speaker, not being a professional lumberjack, could not hold and use the axe as skillfully as they. Hence, they judged him to be a fool was to see how he handled the axe. The speaker, not being a professional lumberjack, could not hold and use the axe as fully as they. Hence, they judged him to be a fool. The tramps are narrow minded and do the work of wood chopping for money, need, or gain. They judge the speaker from their own point of view and find him to be unwise because he does the work not for need but merely for the love of it. Chapter 9. Nothing on either side was said. They knew they had but to stay their stay, and all their logic would fill my head, as that I had no right to play with what was another man's work for gain. My right might be love, but there was need, and where the two exist in twin, theirs was the better right agreed. Neither the speaker nor the tramp said anything. The tramps thought that they had simply to stand watching the speaker doing the work of wood chopping, and that finally the speaker would be convicted of their point of view, according to which the speaker had no right to do for enjoyment or recreation a work which ought to be done by some other man for need or for gain. The speaker might have the right to do the work for the love of it or for pleasure, but theirs was an equally important right to do it for need. If these two rights exist together and are compared, their right might be said to be greater than us, than his. 10. But he Who will to their separation? My object in living is to unite my avocation and my vocation, as my two eyes make one inside, only where love and need are one, and the work is play for mortal stakes. Is the deed ever really done for heaven and the future's sakes? In the opinion of the poet, nobody can accept the separation of the two rights mentioned above. That is, the right to do something for pleasure and the right to do it for gain cannot be treated as existing apart from each other. They exist together. The speaker's aim in life, as he himself tells, is to unite these two rights or to combine his vocation and his avocation to present a single aim in life just as two eyes join together to perceive one single view. The title of work is that in the doing of this work, love and need should be united and it should be done for play as well as for need. Only through such a union can a work of lasting importance in the eyes of God and for the times to come he really done. This last stanza sum Robert Frost's views on the poet's calling, which he himself had adopted. He regarded it as both his vocation and avocation. That is, he wrote poetry both for pleasures and for gain. Aesthetic devices in the poem. Imagery. Frost uses vivid descriptions to create a picture. Symbolism. Frost uses symbols to create meaning. Metaphor. Frost uses some metaphors to create meaning. Simile. Frost uses similes to create meaning. Mixed emotions and social isolation. First, Frost portrays accurately the mixed emotions of both outrage and embarrassment as being cheered at by those at the bottom of the social ladder. Frost's account of himself the reader how shaky the ground can feel beneath one's feet when one suddenly gets a catcall from one's vulnerable blind side. Nothing shows people exactly how isolated they are from those of other social orders than when sudden unsociable contact is made. From the point of view of the landed gentry, Frost's poem captures this emotion almost instantly. Another emphasis is set into motion by the third stanza. However, a new emphasis is that allows Frost to get somewhere deeper to matters of the soul. Unity of love and work. Frost alludes to depths greater than those normally plumbed in the matter of the economic depression of the 1930s. At times aside, what is truly destructive in a nation's trouble is the undermining of human values. By implication, his original idea of mud time expands to include a murky movement in American history. He pleads that citizens not yield to an unnatural split between love and work. Vocation should not, by Frost's own logic, have a connotation all that different from a vocation. Each is a calling, and in Western religions, calling comes from outside the self. There are many famous Old and New Testament calls from God. Frost is a secularist of such spiritual heritage. Here, his reference to his two eyes making one insight is both spiritual and a contemplation of a theme begin with himself two-footed, hitting his single mark. The tramp presents an occasion to state that there are no important deeds done without the unity of love in it. Frost has tried to prove himself integrated in love and need by having forged this very poem out of his experience both with wood and words. He has strived in the poem to hit and expose the mortal stakes buried within his brief encounter. Frost knew what the stakes were from the beginning, and his job has been to make the reader believe the stakes are as high as his line for heaven and the future's sake suggests, and to entwine in several ways the ideas of love and need. At the end of the poem, it is difficult to pull those words apart or to give one concept a higher value than the other. The poem is a proving ground for the entwining as well as idea and craft. idea is carried in the flow of thought and craft is manifest in the ease of his meter. Readers cannot easily separate them because each so clearly takes some of its strength from the other. So it must be with the concept of need and love. A division between them is more rhetorical than real. The division between them disappears when the one finds its beginning in the other. थैंक यू। आई होप आज की वीडियो आपको अच्छी लगी। कैसे लगी हमें कमेंट करके बताएं। और आप आने वाली वीडियोस किस टॉपिक पर देखना चाहते हैं हमें कमेंट करके बताएं। और अगर वीडियो अच्छी लगी तो लाइक शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब टू माय चैनल। मिलते हैं कल एक और इन्फॉर्मेटिव वीडियो के साथ शाम 4 बजे।